Welcome to Momming as a Millennial, the podcast where we explore the intersection of tradition and modern parenting. Have you ever felt overwhelmed trying to balance being a mom with your professional aspirations, all while dealing with side-eye from your parents who think you're doing it wrong? Me too. I'm your host, Kristin Quattlebaum, a journalist, blogger, and proud mama of 2 young children. I'm so glad you're here with me. Together, we can navigate the complexities of millennial motherhood and find what resonates with our true, authentic selves. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of Momming as a Millennial. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I've kind of been going through the past couple months. I've been working on building a business, and so with that has come a lot of challenges, frustration, tears. I feel like I've been working on myself for quite a while now, and I didn't realize now that I'm on this new endeavor how much more I have to go. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about, what it means to live as a true expression of yourself and what we're meant to be on this earth. I feel like from the time I was little, I was always like, well, what am I meant to do? What am I meant to be? Like, who am I going to help? And I really want to talk about how we navigate fear and work through self-limiting beliefs, which is a lot of what I've been experiencing lately. And most importantly, leading from authenticity. So I think I have a great guest who's going to walk us through some of this information and tools that she uses to help us live our truth. So welcome, Kristin Quattlebaum. So happy to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
So I did a little peeking on your website, and I saw that you are formerly a corporate leader for 15 years, and then you turned into a purpose guide and healer, which I love. So I'm wondering if you can start off by just sharing a little bit more about that.
Yes. So my journey, I was always similar to you, wondering where am I going to be? What is the path I'm supposed to be on? And I was very much a seeker in my life. And in corporate, I found that I hit a lot of walls, and finding these pathways that were really exciting to me, but then the excitement would die out and I would hit another wall and then I'd say, okay, it's not this, it's something else. And then I would go deep down that hole and then hit another wall and say, okay, it's not this, it's something else. And I felt like there was something wrong with me because everyone around me seemed to be finding like, this is the path that I'm on. And they seemed to be very clear about that. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not sure where to go. And a lot of my mentors struggled with advising me too, because their question was always like, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I'll put you on that path. And I could never answer that question. I honestly was like, I don't know where I'll be, but I want to learn about everything. And I'm going to be successful. Wherever I'm at, I'm going to be successful. And so what ended up happening is I ended up getting into an accident when I was in early 30s. My boyfriend at the time hit a deer going like 65 miles an hour in my car. We were fine. Airbags went off, but it triggered this debilitating anxiety in me. And it sent me down. That was, I would say, the moment that I started on my healing journey. And so I was still in corporate at the time, but I started seeing a therapist and then I got into coaching and my path just grew from there. I started meditating. And meditation is what opened my intuitive gifts. Actually, when I hired my first coach, my intuition, which I did not feel I was consciously connected to, my intuition said, you're going to apply for this group program and then you're going to be a coach afterwards. And I just knew it intuitively. Fast forward, one of the roles that I was in was eliminated. After a very, very successful corporate career. This position was eliminated and I decided to invest $10,000 into my first coaching certification anyways. I followed that intuitive nudge, got into another role. 6 months later, it was eliminated. And so after 2 roles within a year of each other being eliminated, I took it as a sign from the universe to get out and start my business. And that was March of 2019. And so, there was a lot that happened in between there. But, really what my journey allowed me to do was dismantle from all the systems and beliefs and emotions that I was plugged into that weren't mine, and to really come back to myself. And intuition only just expanded that so much further than I could ever imagine. It really gave me access to the truth of who I am and me not having to lean on anyone else for answers. So that's a little bit about how I got here.
There's so much of what you just said that I can resonate with. I don't know. I feel like my turning point was having children. Then I was like, okay, I need to start my healing journey so I can be who I need to be for them and be a great person and role model and all of that and show up for them in the right way. And then it started with therapy and coaching and meditating. And so, yeah, that's amazing. I feel like I still have a very long way to go, though.
Well, I think it's beautiful that you're even considering all of those things while you're a mom. I think that that's really beautiful because I work with a lot of mothers or people coming out of corporate who've lost themselves in that journey. So I think that's really cool that you're holding space for both.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I am very confused about where I'm going to end up if it's going to be my own thing. And similar to you, like I'm in these positions and I've worked for a lot of different industries and nothing has fulfilled me the way like this kind of stuff and creating fulfills me. So I did want to call out one thing I saw on your website that spoke to me, how you dismantle the web of beliefs and fears that stop us from being in our greatness. And I just like that spoke to my heart because I've been going through a lot of beliefs and fears lately, and challenging norms because the world needs you standing as who you came here to be. So very powerful. Yeah, let's start with your intuition. And you said that you know for sure, when we spoke earlier, going back and forth about setting this up, that you are currently doing the thing that you are supposed to be doing and you have no doubt in your mind about that. And I'm just wondering, like, that's amazing. How did you come to, you're like, I know it, can't convince me otherwise. This is what I'm doing. Like, I would love to have that conviction. So,
yeah. I mean, it was about so much of what I shared in terms of, you know, going through the therapy and the coaching and meditation and all of that. And really, as you said, dismantling the web of beliefs that hold us back from our greatness. It's really about questioning everything. I think that's where the journey starts, really. For anyone who wants to say, who am I, really? Right? Is this really what I want to be doing? Do I really want to be hanging out with this person? Is this important to me? And we don't ask a lot of that, especially when it comes to norms like families and even like religion and, you know, these big systems that exist within our society. We tend to just like, I'm going to fit in the box because that's what everyone else around me is doing. And this is something I share a lot, but it was really impactful for me. One of my mentors, when I was working downtown, we went to Fridays downtown, and she drew on a napkin the bell curve, which in statistics, if you're familiar with the bell curve, and she showed me that I am on this. She drew a little circle on the very edge of the bell, and she said, here's where you are. You're this extreme outlier. And then she drew all these little arrows into the bell. And she said, your whole life, you're going to feel pressure to come back to the norm because you stand all the way over here all the time. And that's the truth. That's the truth of the journey, because we live in a society, as I said, that has all of these very ingrained systems that we're all conditioned to be a part of. And so when we have the courage to step out of them and actually question them and say, you know, this is not for me, it's not until then that we actually discover that. And through that, that's what can be difficult sometimes, because then our loved ones all around us are like, what's going on with you? What's wrong? Why are you so emotional? You used to love this. How come you don't love it anymore? You know, why did you say no to your family? Like, you're not supposed to do that. And so what I would say now is that, honestly, because I had this instinct within me that was like, this is not me. I know that there's more. I know that there's more. And I just kept following that nudge, which I will say to anyone, if you have that nudge, follow it, because not all of us get it in this life. And those are the ones that are here to like wake up and spark people in the world. If you have that, follow that. And when you do that, you can become so rooted in who you are that you become unshakable. You become like, I don't care what the system says. I don't care what exists out here. I feel so strongly about what's in here that you can't shift me. And I'm so rooted in that I've said to people literally that I am willing to leave my family behind to continue going on my path if they decide I don't support you or whatever, right? Which they don't. I mean, my family supports me. They don't understand a lot of the intuitive work that I do, but they support me. But even if they didn't, I don't feel like I'm here for them. I'm here on this journey for me. And so it's a practice. And we're going to have those, that norm energy coming and poking at us constantly. So we have to be diligent enough to say, no, that's not me.
That's so powerful to hear. And there's so many things running through my head about my own family, and they sure don't understand what I'm doing or what I believe and what I stand for. Kind of teetering on not supporting me, but that almost gives me comfort that that's okay and that I should just keep following on that nudge. Also, I'm just thinking about like failures. So you said you're unshakable in who you are, and you keep moving forward on that nudge. And I feel like that's something that I'm kind of in the midst of now, but I'm so worried about misstepping or failures or losing money or not being able to provide for my family. Like, how do you deal with all that and just be you?
Failure is a part of the journey. So
I hate hearing that.
I know.
It's so true.
It's really this, human design plays into this a little bit. So when I read about your human design, I actually have a 3-line in human design, which is all about experimenting and failing. So I'm designed to do that.
Okay.
But I always tell people, even through the journey of intuition is all about walking with fear. Fear doesn't go away. We don't become fearless. We just change the way that we respond to it. And it becomes that it's not as big of a deal to us. Just like the wounds that we heal along the journey too, they don't always completely go away, right? We heal layers of them. I always say when I'm done healing, I'll be dead because then I'm done with the journey here, right? But we heal layers of them. And I think that can be frustrating for people. And it's why a lot of people don't want to go down that road because they think that it's never ending. They would rather stay in the comfort zone, right? But what I would say is that I experienced so much fear leaning into my intuition even. But it's a fear of expansion, right? It's not a fear that I'm actually going to get hurt or that my survival is at threat.
Right.
And so the more I lean into that, the more I expand. My intuition has never misguided me. So I just keep packing up the evidence to say it's okay for me to lean into the fear. It's okay. And if we don't lean into fear, then we're not growing. And what is life if we're not growing?
Right.
It doesn't mean that fear isn't scary or that it's not quote unquote normal to have it, feel like a barrier. It's just, right now in the world, there's a lot of amplified fear, right? And so am I going to subscribe and plug into that system of fear and be afraid for my survival or every day?
Right.
I don't want to live the rest of my life like that.
Yeah. I have had moments where I've let fear take over, and I always regret it, You mentioned human design, so I think maybe we can move into that discussion because this is really interesting. Again, when we were chatting about you coming here, you asked me if I knew my human design, and I do not. I did a lot of research on it today, and it's very in-depth. So if you could talk about human design, yours, what it means, how it helps us, why it's good to know what our human design is, everything about that, I would love to hear.
It's a huge rabbit hole, so I'll do my best to keep it succinct. So human design is a system that was channeled in the 80s, and it combines astrology, chakra system, I Ching, and Kabbalah. And so for anyone who loves astrology, they would probably also love human design. It uses your birth info. Yes. So birth date, time, and location. And it actually spits out this body graph, and it shows you where you'll see the planets on the chart, actually. On the right side is the day and time you were born. On the left side is 88 days before that. So it's your unconscious, design side.
Interesting.
And then your conscious side is how you present personality.
Okay.
So what it shows you is the primary thing it will give you is your energy type. And there are 4 energy types in the world: generators, manifestors, projectors, and reflectors. Generators make up 70% of the population. They have their sacral defined, which gives them like a battery, this energy to go do, build, and create things in the world. And so they have an aura that basically is looking for something to respond to. Like they're designed to respond to things that light them up and excite them. And if they don't do that, they can get kind of frustrated and bored. But the whole journey of a generator is to follow that aura response and move through life and build things that they love. The other 3 types are what's called non-sacral beings. So because they don't have that energy center, they have less energy to do things in the world, right? So they're more like projectors are 20% of the population. So I'm a projector. They are the guides and leaders in the world. So they're the seers. They're the ones that can walk into chaos and point out where all the issues are just instantly. Projectors have deep perspective. We're not very surface level at all. And we have what's called penetrating auras. So we see into people, places, and things better than they can see into themselves. But we struggle seeing ourselves sometimes.
That makes sense.
Manifestors are 9%. Manifestors are the only type whose aura is meant to actually initiate. So they're more of the like leaders, the ones who say, this is what we're going to do next. They kind of evolve humanity, if you will.
Okay.
Their auras are actually what's called repelling, or you could consider it selective. So their auras kind of, push away the people that aren't meant to be in their life. But manifestors are kind of in their own manifestor world all the time. I think that they're very creative beings, but they're just meant here to follow their own urge within and not really listen to anyone else. Which reminds me about kids, so I'll tell you that in a second. So reflectors, lastly, are only 1% of the population. So their whole chart is not defined. And basically, they're meant to absorb and amplify the energy around them and reflect it back into the world. So they take in energy. If they're sitting in a room of people, they're taking in all the energy from everyone in the room, and they're reflecting back truth.
It's got to be exhausting.
So it is for reflectors who don't understand that they're literally just the vessel. So if they hold on to any of that energy, it can be very troublesome for them. But if they learn to hone it, if they learn that about themselves, it can be really beautiful. So human design, in a nutshell, is really all about what is your energy type and how are you designed to kind of interact in the world. And then the system, your body graph, is all about deconditioning. So it tells you when each of your centers, that look kind of like chakras in the body graph, where they're defined or undefined, where you're likely to take conditioning, where you're not. And then in family dynamics, it's really interesting to understand, right? If you have you're a non-emotional, you're a sacral. You're a sacral being, you're not an emotional being. So your solar plexus is undefined, which means you amplify the emotions of those around you. So if your kids are emotional, their emotions are going to feel over the top for you. But if they're emotionals, I'm an emotional projector, we're deep feelers all the time. So it's not a big deal to us, right? Where you think they're on a 10 and they're rolling at a 3.
Oh, that's interesting. I feel like that's probably more with my husband. I'm like, calm down. He's like, what? Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, we did. She looked at my chart before we started. So she's actually going off what I am, and I'm learning about it for the first time. So
I can share a little bit about your chart.
That's interesting.
So you're a 4-6 sacral generator. So if anybody asks you your human design, it's always how you say it, right? Your profile, authority, and type.
Okay.
The first 3 things to master in human design, because it's a huge rabbit hole, are your energy type, which you're a generator, your authority, which is sacral, and your strategy, which is to respond.
Okay.
So I talked about your aura and how it's designed to kind of scan the environment, and you're looking for that sacral response. You're looking for that visceral response to something in your environment. If you meet someone, if you're in a room full of people and you meet someone that you're like, yes, that energy works for me, you're going to run towards that. And that's the energy that you follow. So your strategy and authority are pretty linked together there, right? But they're your guidepost of how you move forward and make decisions in life. The one thing about generators that I will say, because it's 70% of the population, my generators always will end up in a hospital before they recognize that they're burnout. Because we live in a generator world.
Yeah.
So we live in this hustle, go energy. So if you're super tapped into that and you don't recognize that you're burnout in it, then you could end up really sick from it. There is one other thing I'll say is, so if you're a manifesting generator, you're a combination manifester and generator. So it's still generator main type, but you have the throat connected to a motor in human design, which is what makes you the manifesting generator.
Okay.
So they're just a little bit different than a generator.
Huh. It's like another language. I'm really going to have to read up on this.
So your profile, I'll share with you, you're a 4-6. So your 4 line is conscious, your 6 is unconscious. So your 4 is the networker connector. So you enjoy being around people. Your community is super important to you. You're the one that says you should meet you, and like you can make connections with people, but not just people, like also with processes or problems. If you can see like a connection in something that maybe a lot of people wouldn't see, I find that in 4s too. If you don't talk to anyone, if any of you out there know Christine, she doesn't talk to you, it means she probably doesn't like you. That's the 4. That's the 4 line.
Every once in a while, I'll purge on Facebook if you're no longer my Facebook friend.
Same.
I know, yeah.
Community's everything.
So true.
And then the 6 has an interesting journey. So it's your unconscious line. The first 30 years of your life, you're actually a 3, which is the experimenter that I was saying. I'm a 1-3.
Okay.
So your first 30 years of your life, you're experimenting, just throwing spaghetti at the wall, being all over the place. From 30 to 50, you're what's called on the roof, which means you're looking back on the first 30 years of your life and seeing what worked, what didn't work, what do I want to hone in on, what do I want to experiment more with. You're really crafting your genius. And then after 50, you're what's called off the roof, and that's when you really hone your mastery. You master your skill set. You really know who you are after 50. You become the guru. You become the role model. The 6 is the role model. So... And a lot of my 6 lines will say to me, do I really have to wait till I'm 50 to figure out who I am? And I would say to you that really from 30 to 50, you are honing that. Like you definitely have an idea of that. And I'll speak to that real quickly too. You have a defined identity center. So you talked about you wanted to know ever since you were a kid who you are. With the defined identity center, this is the I know who I am center, which means that if you don't, because I work with a lot of people with purpose, and I can tell you that a lot of people who have the defined identity center will say, yeah, but I don't know who I am. Either they do since they were a kid or they don't. You know who you're not. So once you start really just unraveling and pushing away all the, this is who I'm not, the path for you will reveal itself.
Interesting.
There's a lot more I could tell you, but I'll start there.
Huh. Okay. So I've known from the time I was little, like I was going to be a writer, like loosely, what does that mean? Especially like this day and age. So it's like I have an idea, but I don't exactly have the path. Is that typical?
So defined identity centers would know the path.
Okay.
So like mine is open. So mine's not, I don't have that. So I'm going to be a forever seeker in my life.
Okay.
If I know I'm going to open a retreat center in Costa Rica in 5 years, I'm not going to have any idea how I get there, but I'm just going to know that that's where I'm going to be. I know that that's my destiny. That's where I will end up, for example. You would know every single step across the way.
Okay.
So for the people who are undefined like me, our job is to kind of surround ourselves in people and environments that light us up, and then that next step will reveal itself, but we never know the how. So like we have to let that go and let go of what everyone thinks we should be.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was part of my journey too, leaving, 6-figure corporate career and people saying like, what are you doing? You're successful. Why are you leaving? This is not who I am. I know it's not. it's trusting that I know better.
Right. So knowing your human design helps you to be more productive, helps you to just like live your true self, everyone else be darned. Like if someone asked you like, why do I need to know my human design? What would you tell them?
I think it would explain a lot about how you tend to interact with other people, your outlook on life, the ways you tend to be conditioned. So it will give you like sneak peeks of maybe things that bother you about other people, even because so much of our life is human interaction. Understanding that about yourself. I mean, I think I'm a one line. So the ones are the investigator researchers.
Mm.
So the more I know, the better.
Yeah.
So, for me, I've never done a reading for anyone that they haven't been like, wow, I've been feeling that my whole life and I just didn't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, it's wildly validating, the system.
Yeah.
I always say to people, it's a system, right? So suck out the juice and spit out the pits. Like, we take what resonates and leave the rest behind.
Mhm.
Just because human design says projectors are X doesn't mean that I have to subscribe to that. I can find what my own version of that is or
Right.
what that means to me. So it's always put it through your own channel.
Now, when we talk about conditioned and conditioning, how you were raised, culture, religion, all of that, I know that is something that I'm currently trying to figure out for myself. Does this help you uncover like why certain things are now feeling uncomfortable when maybe it felt normal before or whatever, like status quo, what we're supposed to do? This is how our family operates. This is the religion that we are. Now that I'm feeling a little uncomfortable in certain areas, is that something human design could help call out?
That's an interesting question. For you, I would say the combination of you have a defined head, which is rare. I have that too. So once, like, we can be called opinionated.
Oh, that's an understatement.
We're the ones that if you don't have an opinion about something, we'll give it to you. Like, like we're those people.
Yeah.
But we're designed to have really strong, unique perspectives, to be shared and invited out into the world. So knowing that about you and you going through your own deconditioning path, the more you gain that certainty in your mind and then that defined identity center that you have, that could start to repel systems that just don't feel in alignment for you anymore. So specific to you, that's what I would say.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that if you ask a question like that and then I can look at the chart, I can point out in that way, like why that might happen. But I wouldn't say specifically like, well, you have this channel, which is probably why religion has never resonated with you. I wouldn't necessarily go that far with it. So, yeah.
Does your human design change over time or
No, it's set.
Yeah.
Just like your birth chart in astrology.
And then how long does a reading take? Like when you do a reading with somebody?
How long do they have? I mean,
this is why I'm asking. It seems like it could go on for quite a while.
Yeah, usually I do up to an hour. So I personally have 30 and 1 hour readings, 30-minute and 1 hour readings. Okay. And then if I'm doing like a couples chart, so I'll do couples or like parent-child or even like business partners. If I do those charts, I usually do minimum hour and a half.
Okay.
Just because it's two people and you want to kind of explain everything together. But I could easily, I could cut that short into an hour. I mean, it really just depends on what the person wants.
Yeah, that's interesting. The parent-child chart. That would be fun.
Like you have an undefined root.
Ooh.
Which means that it's a stress pressure center. It means that you amplify stress pressure around you. So if you have a child, this is one I give all the time with kids. If you have a child with a defined root and you're trying to tell them to go put their shoes on, we're leaving in 10 minutes, and they're not listening to you at all. Now, they could be a projector or a manifestor for sure. But also, if they have a defined route, they work really well under pressure. So they know they're going to get it done in 10 minutes anyways. You're going to feel anxiety until it happens. So like understand, these are things that are like little things like that, right?
It's
that
so
might
true.
And you might think my kid is disrespectful, they're not listening to me, but really they're just designed they work well under pressure. So it doesn't faze them. They're not stressed out about it. And you're amplifying that stress. So for you, something good to ask with an undefined route is this pressure mine?
Okay.
Do I really need to get this done on this timeline with anything that you do?
It's funny because I went to school for journalism, and there it was a lot of working under pressure. That was the name of the game. And I felt like at that point in my life, I started to work under pressure really well. And I'm still very anxious about it, but
yeah, you'll have a tendency, your natural tendency will be to amplify the stress pressure around you. So if you decondition that and you can understand, oh, that's not my pressure, I don't need to worry about that, right? And then you will learn how you stress yourself out. And that's really when you're more at the real journey, real part of the journey, because now you're unraveling all the systems that you're plugged into that say you need to get this done now or never.
Yeah.
But first, your part is releasing everyone else and then coming back to you. So it's every system leads back to you, really.
So would it be valuable to know what my kids' charts are and then working with them?
100%.
That's fun. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of info, and I have a million more questions, but we're not gonna spend all the time on me. So I was going to ask where someone could find out what their human design is so they can reach out to you and do a reading. So that's reach out to Kristin. We'll include all her information in the show notes. And I think I want to move on to talk about masculine and feminine energy dynamics. You know, this was also something that came up when we were talking about this episode. And I was in a coaching program earlier this year, a group coaching program, and the coach spoke about feminine energy and masculine energy, but feminine energy being tied to right brain activities, so the creativity, the dreamer, and then the masculinity being tied to the left brain activities, so the integrator, the doer, logic, reason, all of that stuff. And she spoke about how everyone has both energies, masculine and feminine energies within them, but typically one is dominant. And then she was speaking from it as a perspective of how to maximize your productivity by knowing when you're in which energy and then kind of feeling that out. So that's the first time I've ever heard of energies being tied to right brain, left brain, but also like how you can plan out your activities based on what energy you're sitting in at that time, and you end up being more productive. So that aside, that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge on that. And I'm just kind of wondering what you think about that and if it relates to your practice and how you treat energies.
It's definitely a perspective of it. I love that you know that much about it. A lot of people don't know. So masculine, feminine energetics really became of interest to me being in corporate and being a strong feminine leader. I was very much leaning way into my masculine energy. So the perspective that I have on it is a little different. I don't necessarily look at it like right, left brain perspective or even like productivity for sure it relates to. And we have both, as you said, inside of us. So it's not related to masculine male and feminine female necessarily. We have both of the energies within us. And so when I was in corporate, I was very conditioned to be in my masculine, which is hustle, 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 go, go, go. But I was in a wounded space because I was trying to prove my value, right? So there's a wounded masculine and then there's a healthy divine masculine energy. Same thing on the feminine side. And so when I got out of corporate then, and I started tuning into my intuition, I said, no, masculine is bad. I'm going to go all the way into my feminine. And so anything that I was thinking in my head or any logic that was there, I pushed away. And I just wanted to be free flowing. And, I would get up. This is when one of the positions that was eliminated that I mentioned earlier. And I would just free flow in my day. And I realized quickly that in being all in your feminine, you don't get anything done. So from a productivity standpoint, you have to learn to balance both. I have a tendency, and you would even see in my human design, where I lean into extremes, right? So I go all the way masculine, all the way feminine, and then I kind of find my way back to this middle point. I'm still learning like how to really balance that. But we ebb and flow out of them naturally. It's not a conscious thought. It's not like oh, am I more in my masculine right now? If you're asking that question, you are.
Yeah.
You are in that. But it's more of a, like, the masculine energy is this like safety foundation. It's the root. It's what holds all of our energy. It's stillness. And then the feminine energy is more creative and sexual and even emotional, intuitive. It's all of those things. And so when we have a business, for example, and we have this structure to be in that we can apply all of our creativity into, then the business succeeds, right? If we have nowhere for our creativity to go, no structure or foundation for it to lay in, then it has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And then if we're all masculine, one of my mentors said to me, she said, if we are in a space of go, 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 do, 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 we're a space of doing, we can't ever receive, which is feminine, right? So we have to balance that. So if you want to be able to receive in your business, you have to be taking time, like training that muscle, right? Playing and allowing yourself space to receive. When we're in that space of go, 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 do, do, do all the time, I think it's worth questioning, what am I doing this for?
Right.
Am I in survival? Am I in this lack energy? Am I hustling myself to death and I'm going to end up in the hospital, right? It's the other place that it plays out, like outside of productivity, is in relationships.
I was going to ask about that, especially like as in parenting, for example.
So we all have a dominant energy in our body, right? So we have like a nature that we go to. So masculine craves freedom, feminine craves love. And so in a relationship, what's interesting is, like, for me, for example, I had attracted a lot of men in my life that would submit to me because I was so strong. My masculine was stronger than their masculine.
Right.
And so they would submit to me, and I would always get so frustrated that they're not taking the lead and being the man and doing the things I need them to do. And I'm just like, why aren't you doing that? It's because I'm being more masculine. I'm emasculating them and not allowing them to stand up and take charge.
Interesting.
And so it's really interesting. I've worked with couples as well, where the husband's walking on eggshells, really emasculated, and the wife is like, why can't he just be a man and do everything that he needs to do? And, and then to see those dynamics completely flip. And it's not always that, like, the female core is feminine and the male core is masculine or whatever. If it's same partner relationship, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If it's two men, there's still one that needs to be more masculine and one that needs to be more feminine. And same with two females, right? It's a polarity that has to exist in the relationship in order for there to be that balance. And it doesn't mean that one is always the dominant and one is always the submissive. It just means that you understand where to ebb and flow in that relationship while allowing that person to shine and be who they're meant to be in that energy. And when you see that, like the one couple I worked with where the man was, kind of walking on eggshells when I first met them, he is now like standing tall in who he is. And his wife is more trusting of him. She's, they've more intimacy now than they've ever had. And it's because of this work of really leaning into that, like giving permission for both people to be who they really are. Everything I love is about who we are in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is just another dynamic that, came forth in my journey.
And how do you recognize when you're in one of the energies or the other, and then know that you need to shift and then do that shifting? Like, how does that work with you?
If you are very in your head and how and all the logic and all the mind stuff, that's masculine. If you are more heart-based, more creative, more flowing, just what am I going to do today? I don't really have a structure, just kind of free-flowing through the world. That's more feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say if you're masculine and you're 2 in your masculine, you're either trying to prove your worth in your hustle, or you're trying to outsmart energy, if you will. I think that's over-masculated. And then on the feminine side, I would say if you're always reactive, you don't really have a plan and your day is kind of reactive all the time, it feels chaotic, you feel overwhelmed, that's a feminine out of balance, right? And so when you bring balance to the 2, it's always a question of structure. So what is structure? When I say structure, some people are, no, I don't want any structure kind of thing.
And I'm like, give me all the structure.
Right. But you have to, it's relative.
Yeah.
It's relative to what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
So can you at least lay yourself a foundation and then give yourself freedom to move through it? And it can be something as simple as when I first started introducing structure into my life when I was very feminine, am I feminine? It was, I'm going to work on energy for an hour, I'm going to work on my environment for an hour, and I'm going to work on work for an hour. And then I can play the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
That was my intro to structure again.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of had to build from there. And now that I'm 6.5 years in business, I'm realizing that I've loosely held structures in my business. And I've changed them so much with my experimenting that I've never really grounded the foundation of my business enough. I've had through lines and services that have kind of stood the test of time throughout my business. But right now I'm really focused on how can I really root in those foundations. But I had to go through all my experimentation and learning to really see that. So it's a real practice and willingness to look at yourself and say, where am I getting in my own way?
Yeah. I love the introspection. I don't think that we do enough of it. And I always just want somebody to tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can fix it. I'm like, oh, wait, no, that's my problem. I got to figure that out. And then you did say when you were talking about masculine energy and proving your worth, that kind of struck a chord with me. So that's something to think about for sure.
Yeah, if you've ever read Strengths Finders, have you ever read that one?
No.
You take a test and it spits out your top 5 strengths. And it was a life changer for me in corporate because I was always trying to correct my weaknesses. And Strengths Finder really roots in the idea that you are your strengths. And if you can maximize your strengths, then that's the value that you bring to a team. One of my strengths was achiever. And achiever, it's the hustler. It's the I'm going to go, get it done. And any strength overused can become a weakness. So when I was early on in my business, I would call it hustling for happiness. I would get a promotion. I asked my boss, how do I get to the next one? In the moment I got promoted. And so that's a sign that I'm not even appreciating my achievements. I'm not even using that strength to its maximum. I am overusing it to prove who I am.
Yeah.
And then I had a coach say to me, who are you wearing the achiever mask for? And in that moment, I knew it was my mother. And in that moment, I said that I dropped the mask. And I didn't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I was ready for it. I mean, the timing was there,
Right.
and it was just on point for me then. But these are all the things that kind of come up in our journey.
That's such a valid point, too, about the timing, because some of these things, I would not have been receptive to, and just being at the right time in my life, having the right things go on to really open up and dig deep. Yeah, so I did want to talk a little bit more about fear and courage. We talked a little bit about walking in fear, but I just thought this was funny. I recently heard that Josh Allen throws up before every football game. And I was like, wow, that makes me feel so much better about life, because I'm always on big things. I remember my first day of my corporate job, when I finally was getting out of freelancing and waitressing. And I was like, okay, this is my big break. I threw up in the parking lot before I had to go into work. I feel like it's that anxiety and that fear and that unknown that sometimes it does hinder my progress. And I'm never pleased with myself when I don't do something because of fear. Even if I make a fool of myself, I'm always happy that I went through with something, even if I was scared. So it's like knowing that in my head, you think I would have worked this out by now, but I have not. So yeah, that was a dump there. But just walking in fear, how do people make sense of that? And how can we use fear kind of to our advantage? To know that maybe we're on the right path or doing the right thing or pushing ourselves in the right ways. That's kind of how I view it. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it's another good question. It makes me think about when I had a team and I was interviewing, and I would get candidates that were just terrified. And I could sense their energy, right? And I would say, Are you nervous right now? Are you anxious? Like, please just put all that aside and just talk to me human to human. Because this is as much about you as it is me. And let's just have a human conversation and see if the energy is right around us both. Because that's when I want you here. I've already looked at your resume and the skills that you're presenting here. Now it's about human energy. Because at the end of the day, if the position is right for both of us, then you would get it, right? The interesting question is, where does the fear come in? Because if we're doing what we're really meant to be doing, then it's easy. And it doesn't mean that fear doesn't come, but fear's not prohibitive at that point. And so it's the prohibitive fear that it's like, where am I pulling this from? Whose fear is this? What am I holding on to? What am I actually afraid of? And can I start to heal that within myself? Because when you can start showing up in the world in that knowing of who you are, that prohibitive fear is not really a thing. And so to me, it's almost like an indicator of there's external factors that you're allowing to affect your energy at that point in time. And what is that? Like, that's where the introspection is. Versus, I know that, you and I were talking before, right? If you were to start posting unedited podcasts and things like that, right? Or videos of podcasts and you just rip that Band-Aid off. What kind of fear is that? Is that expansive? Or are there things there that you're afraid of how you might be seen if it's not perfect, for example?
That's so interesting because on one hand, I don't really care what people think. But on the other hand, I'm like, if I do this wrong, then I won't be successful. So I don't know.
So your I don't care is your defined identity center, and you have an undefined heart, which is common. 70% of the population have undefined hearts. It's the worthiness center. It's the motivation center too. So if you have inconsistent motivation, that's why. And most of the world does.
Yeah.
I have a defined heart. So I'm tenacious AF. And like nobody's getting in my way. So when you feel that motivation, you ride that wave. But even me with a defined heart, I still had to unravel my worthiness wound.
Yeah.
And so worthiness is such a prevalent, it's one of those big societal structures that like exists. It's this overarching pressure that's just constantly like, you're not enough, you're not doing enough. And you got that stress pressure one, you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
And you're not enough at what you are doing. So your work is on unraveling those and saying, no, actually, that's your stress. And this is enough what I'm doing. I feel good about this is a value that I'm providing and putting out there. Right. So when you start to unravel that worthiness wound, then you start to feel less of that performance energy that, again, we live in a performance-based society. So it's powerful when you start to unravel these things.
That really resonates with me as well. So do you think posting an unedited podcast would help push me forward? Like, what benefit would that?
It's certainly a step in walking with fear, and it would help if you decided to take what came behind it and look at it introspectively.
Gotcha. Yep. That makes sense.
And if you did it and nothing happened, you were like, that was easier than I thought, then what's in your way now?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. The last thing I have on my list here is alchemy and shadow alchemy. This was on your website, I believe. So if you could talk a little bit about that, as far as like the stages of alchemy and what that means for self-discovery and self-development.
So similarly to what we just spoke about, it's recognizing what's getting in our way of taking action, because action's the only thing that can shift our reality.
True.
And so if we can start to notice and become aware of what is stopping me from taking the action that I know I need to take, but I'm not taking, and then we start to unravel that. And like, where does this come from? Is this mine? And if I did take the action, what's the worst that could happen? These are all things that you could ask yourself and sort of navigating with that. But alchemy to me is really understanding what it is that's holding me back, choosing to do the thing anyways, and starting to just build those new neural pathways of like, this is actually safe. This is okay for me to do. I don't have to be as afraid of this as I thought I needed to be. Or this is not who I am. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. And I trust that. And I have more courage to be that version of me. And it actually feels really good when I act in congruence with who I am, as opposed to who everyone else wants me to be. That's when I feel the best. So when you start to do that, like the alchemy is, really in recognizing the thing, holding the emotions around it. And it's in navigating both of those things together. So when you start to navigate emotion from a perspective of holding love and transformation with that emotion, right? Like whether it's anger or frustration or bitterness or fear, when you start to hold this alchemizing energy with it and you can see it from that space. So I understand why that made you afraid, because XYZ happened when you were a child and it created this imprint in you, or whatever the case may be, right? You can create more understanding and love towards that thing, right? And you start to neutralize it in a way that gives you a feeling of safety to be able to move forward, right? And then you move forward and see what's on the other side of it, and you navigate that piece of it. And it's just constantly being aware of what's on either side of the path that I'm walking, and how do I really stand in what I want?
Yeah.
And move in the way of my desires and know that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, that's tough. And I equate it to fulfillment. And that's kind of what I'm trying to start in my business is, I've done so many things over the years where it seems like I should feel fulfilled and happy and satisfied with the work that I'm producing or the role that I have, similar to what you're saying. And then I don't. And then I do these little passion projects on the side. I'm like, oh, that's what that tastes like. That's what that feels like. And I just want more of that. So I think that all ties into what you're saying about standing in who you are.
And human design, because as a generator, you're meant to follow that guiding light, to follow what excites you. You're designed for satisfaction. Every generator is. So you're not self as frustration. So when you're frustrated, it's a red flag that you're out of alignment. And when you're satisfied, it's a green flag that you're in your alignment.
Yeah.
So when you find those passion projects that light you up, it's just a little nudge saying, hey, Christine, we really like it over here. Maybe give us more of this and see how things go. But sometimes that norm bell, sucks us in.
Well, yeah, that's, part of my whole problem is I need to have a 9-to-5 job and do this the way that I'm supposed to do and have benefits. And so it's hard to take the leap when I think I'm supposed to be doing this thing over here that society tells me I am, but I really want to do this thing over here. So figuring that out.
Yeah. So one big thing I recognized within myself about fear is that I always do the thing that I'm afraid of. Always. So then it became, how long am I going to sit in suffering of not doing the thing until I just do the thing? So that's your choice that you make every day.
Yeah.
How long am I going to suffer doing the 9 to 5?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying like jump, you know your circumstances
Right, of course.
and all of that. But what is the choice you make?
Mm-hmm.
We choose every day. That's alchemy. We choose to suffer or we choose to heal. What is the choice you make? And some people lean into that, well, I don't have a choice. Well, you do. You might not like what's on the other side of that choice, but we always have a choice. And the moment we think we don't, we're giving our power away to something. And then there's your next thing to unravel.
Yeah.
It's never ending, like I said, till we're dead. So have fun.
Thank you. So as far as like moms go parenting, what advice would you give a mother to help with all of the stressors of being a parent and how busy it is and everything that goes on? What advice would you give to have her step into this journey and how to make time for it and balance it? Because it seems like an impossible task a lot of the times.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I feel like I have to say I don't have human babies. I have a 20-year-old tuxedo kitty cat. Her name is Harley. But I love this question because, like I said, I think that a lot of moms go through that journey losing themselves. Yeah. So the biggest thing I would say is if you have that inkling to stay connected to you, please do go on that journey and know that it's not selfish because you will be the best mother in the world if you do that. And also know your kids, right? And so most parents believe that, they sort of form these attachments with their kids, right? And in any relationship, we form attachments. But those attachments, if they're not let go of, hold the relationship stagnant to where you first formed the attachment. So as parents, like mothers only really need to be attached to their children, like for like safety, like root chakra development and everything until about 2 years old. And then once that passes, the child is really into becoming who they are. They're forming their own identity. And so when a mother can learn to, and a father can learn to detach from their children, you give them space to become their own identity and for you to secure yours. Mm-hmm. I read a book years ago called How to Love Yourself by Megan Watterson and Lodro Rinsler. And they had this diagram, and it's like the one part of the book that I always share, the Venn diagram with the 2 circles overlapping each other, right? And so Christine is Christine in her circle, and Kristin is Kristin in her circle. And we overlap in the middle to create this podcast together, right? We don't overlap each other and merge into each other because then our energies would be lost. We're not maintaining that this is Kristin and this is Christine energy. And so in any relationship, right, whether it's a romantic partner, a business partner, a best friend, a child, where are you overlapping with their energy and not allowing that space for us to be who we are? Yeah. These are all things that I think are worth considering. Knowing their human design, I think, is important. Really just encouraging them. If you have a manifestor child, even a projector child, they're not going to likely want to listen to you. They're not. They're their own leaders.
I'm guessing my daughter's one of those.
So, understanding that about your kid, I think is a big deal. But, really just leaning in, like I said, like as you're doing exactly what you're doing, leaning in and staying curious. Don't lose that curiosity. Don't choose the fear and the frustration, and don't stay there. Like, would you rather be that, or would you rather be expansive and curious and let's see what happens? Who are we going to become next? What are we going to learn next?
I think some people hear that. I hear that and I'm like, oh, yay. And some people hear that and they're like, that seems like a lot of work. So,
again, that's a choice, right? We choose what's important to us and where we want to spend our time. And I get that, especially these days, we're in a phase of diagnosing kids, right? And then adults are coming forward and saying, oh, I just figured out after 30 years that I have ADHD or, things like that, right? My belief, and I'll share this, right? Suck out the juice and spit out the pits, is that that's my defined head, my opinion about something, right? It's an indicator of energy sensitivity. And so when we are super sensitive and we don't know how to manage that energy, I think it can be overwhelming for a child if they're not being guided how to manage that energy. And the jumping around to tasks is also very Manny-Gen from a human design perspective.
Yeah.
They have a lot of interest and don't finish a lot of things. It's manifestor energy. They're going to be jumping around to a lot of different things. What if that's the way they're designed? What if that's part of their creative process?
Right.
But we want to like, well, this is hard because my kid has XYZ. You know, what if we found a different way to help them manage the energy, see the energy? What if we wanted to understand what they're feeling, you know? If my kid's non-emotional and both parents are emotional, the kid's going to be amplifying the energy of the parents to the nth degree and likely going to struggle how to manage that. It's going to be overwhelming, right? If you understand that, you can help them. Hey, like, is this actually your emotion that you're feeling?
Right.
And if it's not, then how can we release that?
I'm just like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense from my childhood. Like, as you're talking, like, ooh, a lot of like things
right, because
going
you're a
off
non-emotional.
in my head. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I had emotional parents.
Mm-hmm.
That makes so much sense. That's all I had to grill you with. So we can end with you sharing a little bit about the services you provide, and I could put all your information again in the show notes and just what you can help these millennial moms with if they so choose.
Yeah. So my work is really, if you haven't figured it out by now and you made it here, it's all around the courage to be who you are in the world. So I do offer all the tools we talked about. So human design, we didn't talk a lot about intuition, but I teach intuition as well and offer intuitive readings.
That's fun.
And then coaching. So human design readings, intuitive readings, and coaching are my primary services. And you can find me on the interwebs at KQ Unplugged. I have a YouTube channel. I have a podcast. It's all on the interwebs. So,
well, we'll get all that information out there. Thank you for this. This has been extremely enlightening, and I have a lot of work to do going forward on my human design. And now I want to know more about that intuitive stuff you just spoke about. But thank you all for listening. Share with your millennial mom friends. And if you have any questions, DM me, DM Kristin, and have a great day. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Momming as a Millennial. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend or on social. You can find more from me at contemplativemama.com. Until next time.